My name is Dylan Murphy, and until a year ago, I thought I understood the architecture of my life. 48 years old, owner of a logistics company that keeps 30 families fed, husband to Anna for 23 years. We had the house with the wraparound porch, the kind you see in those magazines about graceful living. Lauren was finishing her master's degree. Ben had just started his first real job. Everything felt solid, like concrete that had properly cured. I remember the exact moment I first felt the foundation shift. Anna came home 40 minutes late from what she called a quick grocery run. No groceries. Just that distant look in her eyes and the smell of unfamiliar cologne barely masked by a fresh spritz of her perfume. When I asked about the groceries, she laughed. Too bright, too quick, and said she'd forgotten why she went out in the first place. 23 years. And I'd never heard Anna forget anything. The changes crept in like moisture through basement walls. Late days at the office became routine. Her marketing firm suddenly required dinner meetings that stretched past midnight. She started taking her phone into the bathroom, leaving it face down on every surface, jumping slightly when it buzzed. Small things, the kind of things a trusting husband explains away. I tried to blame myself. Maybe I'd gotten comfortable, predictable. Every morning, same coffee, same kiss on her cheek, same drive safe as she left for work. Every evening, same spot on the couch, same questions about her day, same comfortable silence as we scrolled through our phones. Comfort had become complacency, I told myself. This distance was my fault, but then came the Tuesday when she said she had a team meeting until 9. I'd driven past her office building at 7:30. Every window dark, parking lot empty except for the security guard's truck. When she came home at 9:15, she described the meeting in detail. Janet's stupid PowerPoint, Tom's jokes, the cold pizza they'd ordered. Such specific lies. Such unnecessary detail. The lipstick on her collar 2 weeks later, she said Linda had hugged her after too much wine at happy hour. The unknown number texting at midnight, a client in Singapore, she explained, didn't understand time zones. The new lingerie I found in the laundry, tags still attached, bought for our anniversary next month, supposedly. Each lie was a hairline fracture in what we'd built. Not enough to bring everything down, but enough to make me question if the foundation had ever been solid at all. I started paying attention. Really paying attention. The way she smiled at her phone. The way she showered immediately after coming home. The way she suddenly cared about her appearance on random Wednesdays. The gym membership she never used but renewed. The book club that never seemed to be reading any actual books. 3 months of this slow dissolution, and I became someone I didn't recognize. I checked her location on Find My Phone. I noted mileage on her car. I watched our credit card statements like a forensic accountant. Each discovery made me hate myself a little more, not for investigating, but for needing to. The breaking point came on a Thursday. She described in exhaustive detail a team strategy session that would run late. She'd even shown me the agenda on her phone. A quick flash. Not enough time to really read it. But I knew her firm's biggest client had pulled their contract that week. There was no strategy to discuss, only damage control and downsizing. Whatever meeting she was attending, it wasn't with her team. I sat in my home office that night, listening to the grandfather clock in the hallway mark each 15 minutes of her absence. By 10:30, I'd made my decision. I didn't confront her when she came home, flushed and slightly breathless, talking about breakthrough ideas and team synergy. I just smiled, nodded, and kissed her goodnight, like always. After she fell asleep, I went back to my office and found the business card I'd kept but never planned to use. Thomas Garrett, private investigator. Discreet, professional, expensive. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I made a phone call that would expose the truth in ways she never saw coming. Thomas Garrett looked nothing like the private investigators in movies. No trench coat, no cigarette, no world-weary cynicism. Just a neat man in his 50s with a tablet and the demeanor of an insurance adjuster. We met at a coffee shop 2 towns over where nobody would recognize me. Infidelity cases are straightforward, he said, sliding his contract across the table. 3 weeks, maybe 4. Most people aren't as careful as they think they are. He was right. Anna wasn't careful at all. The first report came 5 days later. Tuesday, 12:47 p.m. Subject entered the Marriott downtown. 3:23 p.m. Subject exited the Marriott downtown. Hair wet, clothing changed from morning outfit. Wednesday, 6:15 p.m., subject met with James Poole, her direct supervisor, at Vincenzo's restaurant. 8:45 p.m., subject and Poole entered Poole's vehicle. 11:30 p.m., subject retrieved her vehicle from restaurant parking lot, James Poole. I knew the name, had met him at company Christmas parties. Married 15 years, 2 kids, coached Little League, the kind of man who talked about integrity in his LinkedIn posts. Garrett's reports became my evening reading. Each one more detailed, more damning. Credit card records showed charges at hotels during client lunches. GPS data from her car revealed regular visits to an apartment complex 20 miles from her office. Poole's bachelor pad, Garrett discovered, maintained despite his marriage. Text message transcripts, legally obtained through methods Garrett wouldn't elaborate on, painted a picture of an affair that had been burning for 11 months. I read their messages late at night while Anna slept beside me. The explicit ones made me nauseous, but the tender ones were worse. Can't wait to wake up next to you. You make me feel alive again. This is real, what we have. The cliches of adultery, packaged as profound connection. The photographs were clinical in their composition. Anna entering hotels, Poole's hand on her lower back. The two of them kissing in his car, visible through the windshield. Garrett had even managed to record audio from a restaurant meeting. Their conversation about when to leave their spouses, how to minimize financial damage, whether to move to Charlotte or Austin for a fresh start. They'd planned it all. My destruction was a logistics problem to be solved. I studied everything with the focus I'd once applied to building my business. I learned that Poole had done this before. Garrett found evidence of at least 2 previous affairs. I learned that Anna had been slowly moving money into a separate account, small enough amounts that I wouldn't notice. I learned that she'd been poisoning the well with her friends, painting me as distant, cold, uninvolved. The evidence filled 3 binders: hotel receipts, phone records, bank statements, photographs, audio files transferred to USB drives, email chains discussing their future together, a comprehensive archive of betrayal organized with tabs and timestamps. But I didn't stop at documenting their affair. I researched them both like a prosecutor building a case. Claire Poole, James's wife, a pediatric nurse, devoted mother, active in her church. Anna's parents, Richard and Dorothy, traditional people who'd raised their daughter to value family above all else. Their social circles, their professional networks, their reputations, 3 months of investigation, and I knew more about my wife's secret life than she did. I knew which hotels they preferred, which nights they typically met, what lies they told their spouses. I knew their plans, their fears, their delusions about building a life together. Garrett's final report included a summary that read like a death certificate for my marriage. 11-month affair ongoing. Subjects show no indication of ending relationship. Evidence suggests planned dissolution of current marriages within 6 to 8 months. I sat in my office with those binders spread across my desk, feeling something cold and precise take shape inside me. Not rage. Rage was too hot, too quick. This was different. This was the feeling of an architect surveying a condemned building, planning its controlled demolition. The evidence was damning enough to destroy them in court. But I wanted something that would destroy them in ways divorce papers never could. The idea came to me during a particularly hollow Sunday dinner. Anna was describing her recent promotion, senior account director, a position that reported directly to James Poole. She spoke with such pride, such accomplishment. Lauren and Ben offered congratulations. I smiled and raised my wine glass in a toast. That's when I knew. Her triumph would be the setting for her downfall. "We should celebrate properly," I announced the next morning over coffee. "Your promotion deserves more than just the 2 of us raising a glass. Let's have everyone over. Make it special." Anna's face cycled through surprise, suspicion, and finally pleased acceptance. "That's thoughtful of you, Dylan," she replied, still uncertain. The invitation process required surgical precision. Each person needed a specific reason to attend, a motivation that would ensure their presence. I started with Anna's parents, calling them directly. "Dorothy, Anna's been working so hard for this promotion. I know how proud you and Richard must be. Saturday, the 15th? I asked warmly. Oh, Dylan, that's wonderful, Dorothy replied. Of course we'll be there. Richard will be so pleased. Lauren and Ben were easier. I'd already told them about the affair. They deserved to know why their family was ending. Lauren had cried. Ben had punched a hole in my office wall. Both wanted to confront their mother immediately, but I convinced them to wait. One dinner, I said to them. Let's do this right. Fine, Lauren answered, her voice tight with controlled anger. But this better work. The delicate maneuver was inviting James Poole. I called his office, professional and warm. James, I wanted to thank you personally for recognizing Anna's talent. Would you and your wife join us for dinner? A chance for the families to connect outside of work functions. His pause was telling. That's very kind, Dylan. Let me check with Claire. He responded carefully. Of course, I said. I'll send the details to your email. Claire Poole received her own invitation through a carefully worded email from Anna's work account. I'd learned her password months ago. Claire, Dylan, and I would love to have you and James over for dinner to celebrate my promotion. It would mean so much to have you there. The rest of the guest list filled out naturally. My business partner Robert and his wife, Anna's sister Grace, who'd always suspected something was wrong, a few close friends who'd been fed Anna's narrative about our failing marriage. I spent the week preparing like a general before battle. The menu was planned to the smallest detail, their favorite foods, the wine James had ordered during their hotel stays, even the dessert Anna had shared with him on their first affair date. I wanted them to feel comfortable, safe, unsuspecting. The evidence needed special preparation. I couldn't simply throw documents on the table like accusations. This required presentation theater. I drove 3 towns over to a print shop where nobody would know me. The clerk, a bored college student, didn't question why I needed 15 copies of what looked like elegant dinner menus. Cream cardstock, professional binding, embossed covers with the date and occasion, celebrating Anna's success. Inside each menu, where guests would expect to find courses and wine pairings, they would instead find the systematic documentation of adultery. Page 1, photographs, tastefully cropped but undeniable. Page 2, text message transcripts, the most damning exchanges highlighted. Page 3, hotel receipts, credit card statements, a timeline of lies. Page 4, the audio transcript of them planning their future together. I arranged the house with manic attention to detail. The good china, inherited from my mother. Fresh flowers, roses, Anna's favorite. Candles for ambiance. The dining room looked like a stage set for an elegant evening. I even hung the photograph from our wedding in a more prominent position. Let them see what they were destroying. Ben helped me set up a small camera in the corner, subtle enough to miss but positioned to capture the entire table. For posterity, I told him. Good, he replied grimly. Let there be a record. The night before the dinner, I stood in my perfectly arranged dining room, placing the menus at each seat. Anna's at the head of the table where she'd sit in triumph. James is to her right, where he'd feel safe in his authority. Claire's across from her husband, where she'd have a clear view of his face when the truth emerged. Everything was ready. The house looked perfect for a celebration. Anna had no idea she was walking into her own execution. They arrived in waves as planned. Anna's parents first, Dorothy clutching a bottle of champagne, Richard already slightly drunk from pre-dinner drinks. Grace and her husband next, bearing flowers and suspicious glances. Robert and his wife making small talk about the weather. Anna floated through the preparations, radiant in the black dress I'd bought her last Christmas. She'd styled her hair the way she did for her hotel meetings with James. I recognized the particular curl at her neck. Every gesture, every laugh felt like performance. I wondered if I'd ever seen her genuine self or if our entire marriage had been theater. James and Claire arrived together but separately, the distance between them palpable. Claire looked tired, older than her 40 years, wearing the expression of a woman who'd learned not to ask questions. James carried himself with the casual arrogance of a man who'd never faced consequences. He shook my hand firmly, looked me in the eye, complimented the house. Beautiful home. Dylan, Anna's mentioned how much work you've put into it, he said smoothly. 23 years of work, I replied, holding his gaze. You'd be amazed what can happen to a foundation over time. I'm sure, he responded, missing the implication entirely. We gathered in the living room for drinks. I played the gracious host, refilling glasses, steering conversation toward Anna's success. She glowed under the attention, describing her new responsibilities, the accounts she'd manage. James occasionally added professional context, careful not to seem too familiar. They'd practiced this dance. Lauren watched them with barely concealed disgust. Ben kept his face neutral, but his knuckles were white around his beer bottle. They knew what was coming. The rest remained oblivious, caught up in the pleasant fiction of a successful couple celebrating a milestone. "Shall we move to the dining room?" I announced after sufficient small talk. "About time," Richard said jovially. "I'm starving." Everyone found their assigned seats, admiring the table setting. Anna's mother gushed about the flowers. Robert commented on the wine selection. James pulled out Claire's chair with practiced courtesy that felt hollow, knowing where his hands had been that afternoon. I remained standing as they settled. "Before we begin, I want to say something." The room quieted. Anna looked up at me with an expression I couldn't read. Anticipation? Concern? Fear? 23 years ago, Anna and I stood before many of you and made vows. To love, honor, and cherish. To be faithful in good times and bad. I paused, meeting each person's eyes. Tonight, we're here to celebrate Anna's promotion. But more than that, we're here to witness the power of truth. I picked up the first menu from the stack I'd kept beside my chair. I prepared something special for tonight. A documentation of success, you might say. The menus distributed quickly. I placed each one deliberately, watching faces change as covers opened. Anna's confident smile froze, cracked, crumbled. James went pale, his hands trembling as he turned pages. Claire's gasp cut through the room like breaking glass. "What is this?" Dorothy asked sharply, her voice rising with confusion, then horror as she absorbed the photographs of her daughter entering hotels, kissing another woman's husband. "The truth," I answered simply. Anna tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't support her. "Dylan, this isn't... You don't understand," she stammered desperately. "Page 12, I directed calmly. The audio transcript from Vincenzo's February 15th. You'll find the part where you describe our marriage as a convenient prison, particularly illuminating." James found his voice, aiming for authority. "This is illegal." "You can't," he began forcefully. "Page 18, I interrupted. Your email to Anna about hiding assets from Claire. Your attorney might find that interesting, Claire. I have copies for him." Claire wasn't crying. She sat perfectly still, reading with the focus of someone defusing a bomb. When she reached the section about James's previous affairs, yes, I'd included those too, she looked at her husband with an expression I'll never forget. "Not surprise, recognition." "I knew it," she said quietly. "I always knew." Richard, Anna's father, stood so abruptly his chair fell backward. 23 years. "We taught you better than this. We taught you about honor," he said to his daughter, voice breaking. "Daddy, please," Anna begged. "Don't," Dorothy cut her off, voice cold as January. "Don't you dare ask for understanding." "Not after this," Grace read aloud, her voice cutting. "Can't wait to leave Dylan. He's so pathetic thinking we're working on our marriage." She looked at her sister. "You wrote this 3 days after you and Dylan went to counseling." "It wasn't like that," Anna protested weakly. "Then what was it like?" Grace demanded. The room erupted. Accusations, denials, evidence read aloud like testimony. Anna tried explaining, minimizing, deflecting. James attempted damage control, then retreat. Finally, silence. Claire gathered her dignity and her purse, pausing only to address James. "I'll be at my sister's with the children." "Don't follow," she stated flatly. Lauren stood next, my fierce daughter facing her mother. Dad wanted to do this quietly. "Ben and I convinced him you deserved this. You deserve to have everyone know exactly what you are," she declared. "Lauren, honey, you don't understand," Anna pleaded. "I understand perfectly," Lauren replied coldly. "You're a liar and a cheat." The exodus was swift after that. Anna's parents left without looking at her. Grace hugged me on her way out. Robert shook my hand, murmured something about courage. Soon, only Anna, James, and I remained in the dining room that still smelled of roses and betrayal. "The divorce papers are in the kitchen." I told Anna. "I've already moved your things to the apartment you thought I didn't know about. The one in James's building." James stood to leave, but I stopped him. "Your company's HR department has the full documentation. Claire's attorney as well. I'd suggest you focus on damage control rather than continuing this relationship." They left together but separately, the distance between them now infinite. Anna paused at the door, looking back at the ruins of our life. "Was it worth it?" she asked quietly. "I was about to ask you the same thing," I replied. The house emptied like a crime scene. Anna and James's perfect lives were over, but the real consequences were just beginning. 6 months later, I sit on my porch with a glass of wine, not the expensive stuff Anna preferred, just something honest and red. The evening is quiet in a way that feels earned rather than empty. The aftermath unfolded with predictable devastation. James lost his position after the HR investigation revealed not just the affair with Anna, but the pattern of previous relationships with subordinates. Claire took the children to Portland, where her sister lived. The divorce settlement left him with debt and a reputation that preceded him to every job interview. Anna's fall was quieter but deeper. Her parents maintained their silence. Dorothy had told Grace it was like their daughter had died. The promotion evaporated along with James's position. She found work eventually, at a small firm 2 hours away where nobody knew her story. The apartment in James's building became a monument to poor choices. They'd tried continuing for exactly 3 weeks before the weight of mutual destruction proved unbearable. She drove by the house once, 2 months ago. I watched from the window as she sat in her car, engine running, staring at the porch where we'd once planned our retirement. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of consequences. After 10 minutes, she drove away. She hasn't returned. Lauren visits weekly, bringing takeout and honest conversation. She's processing it all in therapy, learning to separate her father's actions from her mother's choices. Ben comes by on weekends and we work on the house in companionable silence. He told me once that he respected how I'd handled it. Not the revenge itself, but the refusal to let lies stand as truth. Robert still asks if I regret the dinner party. Could I have handled it privately, with lawyers and mediators and civilized dissolution? Perhaps. But betrayal isn't civilized. It's a violence done in shadows, and sometimes shadows need light, no matter how harsh. I don't celebrate their destruction. There's no satisfaction in watching lives implode, even when those lives were built on the wreckage of others. But there is something clean about truth, even when it burns. Every supporting structure of their affair, the lies to spouses, the workplace dynamic, the social acceptance, the financial planning, all of it needed to be destroyed simultaneously. Otherwise, like cancer, it would have found a way to survive, to metastasize, to spread its poison to other lives. The cruelest thing about betrayal isn't the pain it causes, but how it murders possibility. Every tender moment becomes suspect. Every shared laugh feels rehearsed. Every "I love you" echoes with the question, "But did you ever?" Anna didn't just cheat on our marriage. She poisoned every memory of it. My revenge wasn't about cruelty. It was surgery, cutting out something malignant before it could spread further. I broke something that was already broken, just made the fractures visible to everyone who mattered. I take another sip of wine and watch the sun set behind the oak trees we planted in our 5th year of marriage. They've grown tall and strong, their roots deep enough to weather any storm. The foundation of this house, despite everything, remains solid. I had it inspected last month. No cracks, no water damage, no structural concerns. Some things, it turns out, are exactly as solid as they appear. The truth doesn't make them stronger, but it doesn't break them either. They simply endure, bearing the weight they were designed to carry. There's no happiness in this ending, just the dull, satisfying ache of a job done. Necessary, inevitable, complete. Tomorrow I'll wake up in a house built on truth rather than comfortable lies. That's not everything, but it's enough. It has to be. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.